Hey everyone, it's test review time. We're going to go over a couple things from chapter 11 that you need to know for your upcoming test. So, chapter 11 was all about space, and you all know how much I love space. And hopefully, through chapters 10 and 11, you have learned to love it too. I thoroughly enjoyed your science projects, and I'm actually still grading them. It's taken a long time since there's so many of you. But the ones I have watched so far have done a great job. If you haven't sent yours to me yet, please make sure that I get that. But for your test, we're going to go over just a couple things that you need to make sure that you look at. There will be quite a few questions on there. I will tone it down and compared with what you would have normally. So just like I did the last one. Make sure you study. I will attach a Quizlet down below as well, so make sure you check that out and study that. For chapter 11, it covered quite a lot of information. You had about the visible spectrum and all the different rays that were included, the X-ray, gamma ray. You had the definitions of what a day is, solar day, apparent day, the time meridian, the standard solar time. So make sure you are very familiar with what those definitions are. Look through your bold terms, look through your section reviews. Also, that Quizlet's going to be really helpful. One thing I want to make sure I talk about with you is the space flight definitions and some of the astronauts that we have learned about. So the first man to ever fly in space was not called an astronaut. He was actually called a cosmonaut. That's what they call a Russian astronaut. So his name was actually Yuri Gagarin, and he's probably the most famous man in terms of space flight. NASA has monuments that recognize him as well. If you were to go tour there, you would see that. Then you have the first woman cosmonaut who flew from Russia as well, and her name was Valentina Tereshkova. And she is a pretty awesome lady. But I want you to think about Yuri Gagarin for just a second. And since I didn't get to teach you this in class, I want to make sure I mention it here. Imagine being the first man to ever step foot in a little tiny capsule that is barely big enough for you as a human being to fit in this tiny hole with machines all around you, and they're going to shoot you up into space. You don't know if you're going to make it. You don't know if you're going to be able to navigate back down. You hope calculations are right, but once you're up there, you don't know really what could happen. So space flight back then was very unpredictable, very scary for the first few people to go up. So it took a very brave person to be able to do that. So when we talk about him, I really want you to think about that. He should be honored because he was the first man who was actually brave enough to step past his own fear and to try something new and something different. And that's very admirable for sure. So a couple other things I want to make sure you know for your test too in regards to space is the Apollo missions and the Gemini missions. Make sure you're familiar with what missions occurred where and when, and also any significant details that happened with them. So make sure you're familiar with that. You need to be familiar with all of the space terms from chapter 11 and also your calendar terms. So the Gregorian calendar, the Julian calendar, both of those need to be mentioned as well. For some other space things, you need to know what the International Space Station is, the ISS as we call it, and who actually helped compose that. So what countries actually composed the International Space Station. Also, what do we call the space craft that actually can go to space and return? That's something you need to know. You need to be able to tell me some names of those that have gone into space, and also some orbits and satellites that we have learned about. So like the geostationary orbit, the geostationary satellite, what does apogee mean, or perigee? And remember, the apogee and perigee is talking about when something is orbiting, how far or how close it is to the sun. Okay, so make sure that you're aware of those terms and definitions there. You also have what unmanned satellites are. Make sure you know those. Types of orbits, weather satellites, navigational satellites, military satellites, Earth observation satellites, and communication satellites, which we are using a lot right now. Just like I'm talking to you from my phone, on my couch, after working all day at the pharmacy. So that way you can study for your quiz tomorrow. So the communication satellites have come in very handy, and we're actually using them a lot more now with quarantine than we ever have before. So I'm very thankful for them. Hopefully you are too. It's nice to be able to see some of you guys on your science project videos for sure. It's good to see your faces. I miss you. But make sure you study hard. This actually should be a pretty easy test if you put some time and effort in. Those of you that are struggling grade-wise, you could pull an easy 100 if you spend some time studying, and that would greatly boost your grade with your science project as well added. So make sure you do that, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys do well, and hopefully seeing you maybe for graduation service or something in the summer. All right, bye.